Mai aloha no ke anu e lue, a he wehi ano kauka. He hoa kau ano ala kai, hulu pei kana hele. E maliu mai, I ka leo kupuna, ma ke ala o ke onga. E huaka I kilohana, e kulia I ka nuu.
The Shangri-La Museum of Islamic Art, Culture, and Design is a place where art, ideas, and people come together. Home to the only U.S. museum dedicated to Islamic art, here every tile and carving is intricate, layered, and intentional. So too is Amy Miller. From marine science to hunger relief, her journey is grounded in empathy, driven by data, and powered by kindness. As the CEO of Hawaii Foodbank, Amy is confronting a crisis hidden in plain sight.
30% of Hawaii families are food insecure. So that means there's not enough food in that family for everybody to live a healthy, active lifestyle. And that could range from needing to make compromises on the kinds of foods that you purchase, all the way to skipping meals, going without food for whole days, or losing weight because there just wasn't enough money for food. We have kids that are going to bed hungry at night on this island, and I just think that's not okay.
I think that 30% just sounds astounding to me, to think about, 3 out of 10 families not having enough food on a regular basis. I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that, especially because we are a community and a culture that really prides itself on taking care of one another. Why do you think there might be that disconnect, or that people might be surprised by those numbers?
I think food insecurity is one of those things that can be very hidden. People are proud. They might be ashamed to ask for help, ashamed to let folks know. We know that people are making choices between going to the doctor or paying for medication and paying for food. Or do I pay my electricity bill? Do I pay to put gas in my car and allow me to go to work? Or do I pay for food? And so these are really intense struggles. We call them impossible choices that we're forcing families to make, and yet it can be very hidden.
Heart and strategy guide Amy's leadership. Since becoming CEO in 2021, she's expanded the food bank's reach, drawing on values shaped by her upbringing in Seattle, where she was raised by a Japanese mom and Caucasian dad.
My dad was actually the first non-Japanese person to marry into my mom's family, and he was accepted because he ate all the food. But when we would go to family dinners, one of my aunts would be like, "Oh, the Millers are coming, so we brought extra bread." They're so it always felt a little different. And when I was growing up, though, we used to come to Hawaii every year on vacation, and I actually think my mom felt very at home in Hawaii because Asian culture is such a big part of this big melting pot we call Hawaii.
Growing up, she did it all: soccer, swimming, flute, piano, and Amy thrived academically, earning a place at Harvard. It was there, in conversation with another student, that she felt truly seen.
She was a freshman and she was from Hawaii, and she took one look at me and she's like, "Oh, you're Hapa." And no one had ever said that to me in my whole life, and I just felt really seen and like I belonged. And I think that was one of the reasons that ended up attracting me to come to Hawaii, is I really kind of felt like I belonged.
Tell us about how you came to Hawaii and how you ended up staying.
When I was graduating from college, I went to the Career Center, and I was paging through, the binder of all these different job and internship opportunities, and I saw this internship in Hawaii at the Kewalo Basin Marine Mammal Lab. It's 5 months long, working with dolphins, studying dolphin cognition, and I just thought, what a amazing thing to do for 5 months. And then I can actually had a job in New York. I'll go, do this for 5 months. I loved Hawaii. And then I'll, start my real life after that. So I came here and I just fell in love. I fell in love with the dolphins, with the work, with the people, with the place, and that was in 1997.
And it's so unusual to meet someone who was a dolphin trainer, especially if a dolphin trainer for 7 years. What of that experience do you still carry with you?
A lot, like really thinking about what motivates somebody. So with working with the dolphins, always trying to understand, okay, what motivates this dolphin? Like, I'm trying to teach you something that is a complicated concept, and you try one thing and it doesn't work, so you got to try something else. And I do think like that's something that I've brought through, both in terms of like being a mom and, okay, if I try to communicate something one way and it's not working, it's on me to figure out another way. And also, in work and in life, like really trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and figure out, like, if I want to say something to you and you're not hearing me, I have to figure out another way to do it.
And in the dolphin case, you're actually teaching dolphins how to communicate. I think when people hear dolphin trainer, they are thinking of someone at the Kahala, that is helping them swim with tourists. This is very different.
Yeah, no, it's a dolphin research lab. We're really focused on understanding, how dolphins think, how they can learn.
In your heart, it seems like you're a scientist.
That's where I, grew up in science, and then working at the dolphin lab. I ended up doing my master's there in psychology, marine mammal behavior and biology. Maybe just a lens through which you can see the world. Like I love data, I love analytics. Yeah, I really feel like, understanding the world around you, understanding people, the data, it has always been something that really intrigues me.
She traded dolphins for development, taking a role in fundraising at Bishop Museum. Then in 2021, in the midst of the pandemic, Amy became CEO of Hawaii Foodbank.
You step into this role when hunger is really at the center of so much of what people are going through.
Yeah.
How did you take that on? What were those first few months like?
Really steep learning curve. I had been in nonprofit work my whole life, but this was really different. Everything had changed, right? So the food bank had done the same thing for many years and done it really, really well. And all of a sudden the pandemic comes along and throws everything into disarray. The need goes up dramatically. The places that we normally had sourced food, we did a lot, primarily almost all the food that we distributed was donated. And now, we were all buying all the food off the shelves at the grocery store, so a lot of our retail donations went down. So it was a time to really kind of rethink what the food bank's role was. And that's, I think, one thing that the pandemic did that was really beautiful, is it kind of opened this little empathy window for, people to understand, like, now that could be me. We saw like how fragile, especially in a place like Hawaii, where it's so hard to make it. And so I think we had a huge outpouring of folks that wanted to help and were volunteering or donating. And then, I also think it maybe made it a little bit easier for people to say, like, hey, I need help. And that's exactly why we're here. Like, we think about that all the time. Why are people ashamed to ask for food? This is a basic human need. Like, no one should go hungry, especially in a place like Hawaii where we all take care of each other.
Still ahead, the scale is massive, the need urgent, and Amy is guiding the team that meets it every day. That's when a leader's journey continues. The Hawaii Foodbank warehouse in Kalihi holds a staggering 1.5 million pounds of food. It's a daily operation that begins before dawn and feeds communities across Oahu and Kauai.
So it comes from a variety of different sources. An important source for us is donated food rescue. So our trucks are actually out on the road every morning, 5, 6 in the morning. They go to Safeway and Costco and Sam's Club. They pick up food that's nearing its end of shelf life for whatever reason, comes back here. We have volunteers that inspect every single food item, make sure it's safe, and then we get it out on distribution.
Here, Amy's deep sense of purpose and her love of data come together in a place where every box and barcode means someone gets to eat.
How many people will this food reach? ultimately? How many people are you serving?
We're serving on average right now at about 173,000 people per month.
When you look at that lift, 173,000 people, how do you not get overwhelmed by this task?
Well, that's a good question. It can be overwhelming just to think about every single one of those people that we serve is a human being, right? A family, a kid that needs food, a parent, a grandparent. And so really making sure that we're taking care of every single family, right? And making sure every person gets the kind of experience we want them to have. They're not waiting in line for hours. They're able to access fresh and healthy food. It can get overwhelming, but it also, I'm very much kind of like a systems and a program person. Like I like to have projects, like to have lists. And in the end, it comes down to like how well do we plan?
Part of that planning is knowing who needs what and where. A third of the food bank's distribution is fresh produce. To get fruits and vegetables to more people, Amy and her team are launching a new solution: cold storage vans that bring fresh food directly into neighborhoods.
So we could actually look in by zip code, how many pounds of fresh produce are we getting out per food insecure person, and we saw that there were some areas that just didn't have the same level of access as others. So this was one of our solutions. Okay, if we can't get cold storage through other mechanisms, let's bring fresh food to them.
Yeah, and I also really love the idea that you get to pick out what you actually want to have.
It makes such a difference. I think the better we make that experience for people seeking food assistance, the more likely they are to want to do it.
Amy's all about solutions, but some challenges don't come with clear answers.
Tell me about a time when your leadership was really tested. You've had all of these diverse experiences. What's been a struggle that you faced as a leader?
When I first came to the food bank, we put together a strategic plan. And so we were really trying to understand, like, what's our role in this place, right? As the food bank, what are our strengths? What can we do more of? And what's our overall mission? And one of the things we looked at was, both ensuring that people don't go to bed hungry at night, right? So making sure people have food today, but also this idea that, if we're still doing the same thing 20 years from now that we're doing today, like, we will not have been successful, right? Like, nobody wants to wait in line for food. And really, is there a mechanism for us to both focus on meeting the daily need, but use that system to try to shorten the line so that people get what they need to get out of line and stand up on their own 2 feet. And that actually was really interesting, this idea of ending hunger. So we talked about adding the phrase ending hunger to our mission. And the interesting thing was, for some of the long-term staff at the food bank, that was a really hard ad. And I was surprised. It was really the internal staff that had trouble with it, and it came down to, it was really hard to put something out there that you might not be able to accomplish. And so we talked about it, and then where one of our team members said, you know what, we might not be able to end hunger, but we're gonna work our okules off every single day to get there. And we said, that's it. So our mission is to nourish our ohana today and work to end hunger tomorrow. And that word work was put in there very specifically to acknowledge the fact that, this is a big challenge. It's not something that we can solve overnight, but we're gonna work to get that done.
You're working towards a goal that is arguably not impossible, but certainly very difficult. How do you lead a team toward a goal that you might not ever achieve?
So I'd say that there's 2 parts to that. And one is that hunger is just something that happens every day, right? So every single time that you're able to support a family with groceries, that's a night that they didn't go to bed hungry, right? So you have a little win every single day. You're helping somebody's life a little, be a little bit easier. Taking that worry about food off the table, even if it's just for one day or 1 week. The other piece of it, though, is I actually think in a place like Hawaii, food insecurity is not an impossible thing to solve. We live on an island. We live in a place where people take care of each other. We don't have that many people, and we don't have porous boundaries, right? And I really believe that it's something that if we have the will, that we can deal with it. I really do think so. So, and maybe that's like naive of me, but I do believe that we can solve it.
We need that optimism.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to have someone leading an organization like yours with that kind of intention and optimism and true belief, because if you didn't believe that, then you wouldn't be the right person in that role, right?
Well, and food insecurity is tied to all these other big things, right? Like you can't, in the end, you couldn't probably just solve food insecurity because it's connected to the cost of living and housing and all of these other things. But the thing about food is it's not that complicated compared to, say, housing, right? And it's not that expensive compared to some of these other big issues. So I do feel like if this is something that we can tackle, and we can tackle it together, and we can actually make big strides.
Still ahead, Amy's call to action.
I really actually think it's time for us to stop kind of working around the edges and really address the big systemic issues that we have that make it so hard for so many families.
That's when A Leader's Journey continues. Hawaii's challenges are critical, and Amy Miller says it's time to act.
What the guidelines are in terms of...
What do you think Hawaii needs most from its leaders right now?
I think courage is something that we need to step up into this space right now. I mean, I think that, Hawaii is we're in a pivotal time. We are losing population. More Native Hawaiians live outside of Hawaii than in right now. I was speaking with somebody the other day who is a real estate agent, said he's selling more homes in Las Vegas to families than here in Hawaii. And I think it's a real crisis. People cannot afford to live here, and we have to fix that. Otherwise, what will this place be without the people? And so I really actually think it's time for us to stop kind of working around the edges and really address the big systemic issues that we have that make it so hard for so many families.
So what does that look like in practice to you?
Being willing to say what is okay and what isn't okay. Being willing to think about big changes and maybe us accepting that the status quo isn't acceptable anymore. We can get together and say, this isn't okay, and these are the things that we need to do as a community in order to be sure that everybody comes along. But I think we have to be willing to understand that it's, our lives today, for those of us that are lucky and we have jobs and we aren't struggling, that's, there's so many families that aren't in that position, and it's just not okay. It's not okay for us to pretend that's not happening anymore. I was recently at a talk, and this woman shared that even intermittent food insecurity for very young children can cause permanent changes in the brain structure. And I just thought, we just can't do this. We are jeopardizing our future as a community because we are not ensuring that especially our youngest kids have access to safe and healthy food. So I really do think that this is something, if we can tackle it together and address it and just make sure our kids have food, make sure our families have food, that opens up so many other great opportunities and outcomes for our whole community.
In my interactions with you, what always strikes me is that you're so warm and kind, and I wonder how kindness is an asset to leadership.
I mean, that's what I tell my kids every day. Being kind, I think, is so important, right? It's all about connections and connecting with people. And, if you have an opportunity to make somebody's life a little bit better, to me, that's a big part of being human. It's important to be kind to be thoughtful, to be like thinking of other people is a, I do think it's an important part of leadership.
What advice do you give to other leaders, particularly women?
One is around just being clear about your boundaries. One thing that I learned when I had my first daughter is that I realized I used to do most of my work after 5 p.m. You would your meetings all day long, and then kind of people wind down, and that's when I do my work. And then when I had Claire, I realized like, wow, I can't. I gotta go. I gotta pick her up, otherwise they start charging you. So being able to carve out time to say like, okay, put my work aside and be a mom for the next however many hours, and being able to like make that shift. That's something that I think I do well. And it's been healthy for me to be able to like, okay, I try not to let work bleed over too much into my family time. So often we kind of think about work is like the more the better. Like volume is important. And, I used to think that too. And I kind of have come to see like, not so much, it's about getting what needs to be done, but also being healthy, and not being sure that you're not burning out and you're not burning out your team.
Is there a quote or maxim that you return to when things get hard?
This is kind of cheesy, but I think about the golden rule, and that's something that I really think about, like how would I want to be treated in this situation? And so when things are tough, I really kind of focus on like, okay, what would I want out of this in this situation?
We always end the same, and that is to ask, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
My mom always said, just do your best. Do your best. And I think for me, that has kind of morphed over time. Like I think when I was in high school, and do your best meant be the best, always achieve, and you have to get straight A's, or you have to do these things. And over time, I've also come to see like maybe do your best is also shifts, right? And what your best is might be different for different people. And so I do really think about that a lot. I want to make sure I'm bringing my best and doing my best, but it doesn't mean burning myself out. And it doesn't mean this person might be doing their best and it might look different from what my best is. And that's okay. That's beautiful, right? We all bring different skills and talents into a workplace or community or whatever. So that's my advice that I've always kind of stood by from my mom. Just do your best.
Amy leads with a simple truth: do your best to help others do theirs. For A Leader's Journey, I'm Yunji Denise.